right. All right. What's up? How's it going? It's good to be back. I'm like working on a new setup here with I got like a ring light and it's a whole thing. We're working on it. We're trying to up the game on the SF. We're working on it. Maybe I can turn this guy down a little, get a little more of the torso. Maybe it's not, I don't know. We're working it out, learning on the fly. Okay, so what are we talking about today? Today we are talking about victim mindset. The victim mindset. There we go. That's better. Get that weird shadow out of there. Okay. I've been thinking about this a lot. Because there's so much. I just have a lot of bias when it comes to discussions of victim mindset, victimization. Because here's the thing. In the cohort that I was in for the last, 10 years, whatever, the various cohorts in general, whether that's internet progressives, the arts community, nerd community, whatever it may be, because these cohorts are very socially aware. A lot of the discussion was about systemic privilege and the ways in which different people have different advantages based on gender or where they were born or how much money they have or this or that or whatever, right? And so for a really long time, I was very, very hesitant to talk about this idea of a victim mindset because I was like, well, we do really need to acknowledge the ways in which the system is profoundly unfair and is not set up to be fair for everybody. And I don't want to say that because somebody can't overcome a massive systemic barrier, that makes them a victim, or that like acknowledging systemic racism, systemic sexism in the workplace, transphobia, homophobia, whatever it may be, that acknowledging that is somehow something we shouldn't do, where it's like, yeah, you can acknowledge it, but you should always just be able to get over it, right? So I was very, very hesitant until this morning. This morning, I see what they're getting at. One of the cool things about social media, for me, Facebook in particular, has been so illuminating about this. When you're on social media, what I think a lot of people don't realize is the posts that you see may or may not be for you. And your actions, thoughts, beliefs, whatever, may not be informing why these people choose to say the things that they do, right? There's a great XKCD comic that's talking about like, I love being on Facebook because it gives me a glimpse into the viewpoints of the friends of my friends, because my friends are all reasonable people, but the people that my friends are friends with are fucking wackadoo, like kitten murderers, right? I started to think about that, and I have some friends who are in like the professional voice and opera world and have been in that realm for a while. And I'm gonna actually pull up. I'm not gonna name any names, but I'm gonna pull up a particular conversation that I saw on a friend's wall, and it blew my mind. I was like, oh, that's it. That's victim mindset. So I'm going to read it to you. I'm going to paraphrase again in the interest of just like not throwing this person under the bus. So this is a post that wasn't even about, like, it was like loosely talking about voice transitions. And as you get older, you have a certain whatever, your voice matures in its 30s. Okay. And this person writes, yeah, well, you need someone to help you, guide you through a big voice change. And we're like, okay, that's a little weird and aggressive to like grind your axe on this person's status, but okay, fine. It's not totally out of left field. And then, the original poster was like, yep, grateful for my teacher. And then this other person was like, yeah, well, I wasn't so lucky and it made me give up on singing forever. And I was like, I don't think that's a proportion. Hang on. Wait a minute. Let's unpack this. Then I started talking to my actual friend, and hearing stories of like somebody who did 4 years of undergrad studying with one teacher and another 2 years of grad school studying with the same teacher, and then will swear up and down that this teacher ruined her voice. And there's a part of me that absolutely acknowledges institutional power, certainly have a lot of toxic environments, especially when you have like a teacher-student relationship, that it can get very like, well, I am the teacher. I can see the long game that you can't because you're young and stupid. Listen to me, the successful authority figure, and leveraging their power that way. Yes, absolutely. 100%. Like that is a component of it. But like 6 years of something not working out, that's too fucking long. That's too fucking long. We don't have to do this. We don't have to do this. Look, if it's, again, I pull the trigger a little fast. I will freely admit this. I'm more at the like 6 week to 6 month thing. If a particular teacher isn't working out, relationship, class, job, whatever. Like I'll pull the trigger pretty quickly. And I will recognize that maybe I get a little too trigger happy. Be that as it may. 6 years is a long fucking time to stick with something that isn't working out and that isn't making you happy, especially if at the end of it you're like, oh, yeah, this person ruined my life. And that's the part that I'm like, I think that this is a mindset thing, right? So I think about my own exodus from New York, right? And I think about how, I left New York and it took me 4 years to like fully leave. From the beginning of when I was like, I don't know if this is working out. And then in 2019, when I was like, this is irreparable, I'm out, goodbye, peace, fuck you, goodbye, right? But here's the thing. During those 4 years, I wasn't just not doing anything. I was like, okay, I have this feeling that maybe New York isn't the right place for me. Let me explore this field. Let me make sure I actually understand what the issue is. Maybe we can work something out. Let me communicate as well as I can with myself, with the people around me, with this and that, whatever, right? So like that was the first sort of year or so, right? And then I quit the drinking. That brought a lot more clarity. I did a show summer of 2016 that fucking blew my mind. And then I came back and I was like, okay, what is happening right now is not okay. I got to make big changes in my life for my long-term future. And then for the next 3 years, I actively tried to do shit to make this situation better. And then finally I was like, you know what, Pete, I got to go. Bye. I got to be in LA. Right. And so to me, when we're talking about like this victim mindset, really what I want to get at and why I think it's an important thing to think about is there's a difference between recognizing a problem and at least trying to do something about it. Even if it's just, let me consume the full scope of what is wrong and what is bothering me Because look, when I started to get that inkling of like maybe New York isn't the right place, that was in April of 2015 when Hamilton hype was fucking peaking. And the fact that I was feeling this way at the precipice of something that could have legitimately changed my career trajectory forever, and I still was like, I think I gotta go, even subconsciously. That's not a conversation that you have once in one day and you're just like, okay, great, I understand that I have to leave, bye. No, it's not like that. That's not how this works. It took me an entire year of actively ignoring the problem, right? So before, again, if I'm being, with perfect hindsight and understanding, seeing the path that my life happened to take, I can see the seeds starting to be planted in 2012-ish of like, was it 2012 or 2011? 2010, 2011. Yeah. Hang on. When did The Dark Knight Rises come out? 2012. Okay, great. So yes, it was the summer of 2012. And I was like, I think I gotta like make some changes. But even then, like I wasn't even ready to look at the problem yet. And so I was just like passively ignoring the sensory issue staring me in the face, right? And then 3 years later, 2015, I was like, okay, this is an issue. I'm not ready to deal with this, but I see that it is an issue. And so I'm going to be actively like looking away from being like, all right, let me look at this other thing. Let me actively ignore it, keep coming back to it. And then I started to face it head on. And then I started to make the changes, right? My point is, that's fine. That's how processes work. It's not a linear thing. It's not, oh, I see this big problem. Let me address it head on right now and just fucking get rid of it. Because that's hard to do. And also, it's not particularly effective. And here's the thing that I have now come to realize. If I had left in 2015, right? So like my lease was up in the summer of 2015, right? And leaving aside all of the opportunities, all of the growth, all of this and all of that happened from 2015 to 2019 when I was still in New York, if I was like, oh, I want to leave New York April of 2015, and if I was like, I think I'm just going to not renew my lease and then leave and then move to LA, I would have carried so much fucking baggage with me to LA that just like a shit ton of tidal wave chaos bullshit that I would have had to have dealt with here in LA. And that would have been hard. Would not have even necessarily been the correct or healthiest thing to do. So, I certainly don't begrudge myself for not leaving right when I wanted to. I don't begrudge anybody for not starting the process as soon as you recognize that there is an issue. Not at all. Because I needed to figure out, like, okay, well, if I don't want to live in New York, why don't I want to live in New York? What is it about New York City that ain't working for me? And that took a while. I was like, okay, well, is it this? Is it that? Is it that I really want to do TV and film, but I feel like I can't? Okay, well, why do I feel like I can't? Like, this was like a multi-part process of questioning that I just had to go through to like get to where I ended up now in 2020, right? But I bring this up in the context of victim mindset, because the difference for me is when somebody really does make that change of like, oh, wait a minute. I am the one thing in life I can control. Huh. Okay, great. That's a big step to take. In Hamilton, there's an entire fucking song about that concept. It's a great song. It's called Wait For It. You should definitely check it out if you have not. But like he has this whole song, and that's like one of the big lyrics of the song, in addition to Wait For It, which is the name of the song. I am the one thing in life I can control. And that's a big turning point in Burr's arc, because he is finally like, okay, yes, I need to actually take steps to improve my situation. And there's steps that I can take, right? So when we're talking about like systemic prejudices, when we're talking about police brutality and, union corruption and systemic sexism in places like Fox News and people like Matt Lauer and Louis C.K., like, we're not fixing those problems on a massive scale by ourselves tomorrow. That's not how this shit works. But what we can do is we can say, okay, I am in this environment that's not working for me in its current state. And this sort of brings me to the second half of this video title, which is what I call the desired gap. And I've talked about this in a couple of other videos, I believe on here, certainly on my personal channel. And what the desired gap refers to is how much you want it, how much you want a thing relative to how much you need to want it in order to achieve it, right? So, I'm trying to get more fit. Obviously, we're in pandemic land and fucking whatever cuckoo banana pants nonsense. But okay, I have a goal at the end, by October-ish to really get into good shape, eat right, eat better, start to get back to my really healthy habits, figuring out a better nutrition plan, whatever, going back to the nutritionist that I've been working with to figure stuff out, right? It's a whole thing. And so that takes an amount of effort. I have to want it a certain amount. And just because of whether it's where I'm starting, natural genetics, design, whatever, there is a gap right now between how much I want it and how much I need to want it if I really want to achieve it, because of the amount of work that's going to go into it. I really, really, really wanted to leave New York. So no barrier was insurmountable. It doesn't mean it didn't take effort. It didn't mean that it wasn't painful. It doesn't mean any of these things. But because I wanted it enough, the fact that the barrier existed kind of didn't matter. And that I think is sort of the missing component in a lot of the conversations that I've had about systemic injustice and just this concept of a victim mindset. Because there are absolutely systemic barriers in place to things, because capitalist America is flawed in a lot of really important ways. The fact that we have tied fake currency to food and shelter and utilities is bananas to me, right? But leaving that aside, I'm going to use the Tai Lopez example of, fancy cars, right? I don't really give a shit about fancy cars. I don't care. Someday, I think it would be cool to own a Jag. But like, I don't need or want a garage full of nice cars, of a sports car. I just don't give a shit. So, given where I am, right, I need to want having a garage full of Lamborghinis this much. Right now, I want that this much. Okay, that's a big old gap, right? And I'm like, I just don't care enough. I just don't care enough. The amount that I wanted is nowhere near the amount that I need to want it in order to actually achieve it. Great, cool, fine. You are allowed to want within reason, like don't murder people, but like generally speaking, you can want whatever you want. That's allowed, right? But I'm just going to use my example in the first place. I then don't get to say, ugh, some people get to have a garage full of Lamborghinis. I want a garage full of Lamborghinis. How come I don't get a garage full of Lamborghinis? Okay, but like, what are you doing to actually try to get your garage full of Lamborghinis? How much do you actually want a garage full of Lamborghinis? Why do you want a garage full of Lamborghinis, right? Like, these are really, really important questions. And I think back to this person who was like, oh yeah, this voice teacher ruined my voice and knocked me off of singing forever. And I'm like, girl, just switch teachers. Like, if you care enough about singing, if you want to sing that badly, find a different voice teacher. If you can't afford a voice teacher, but you want to take voice lessons badly enough, restructure your budget. Live somewhere with a lower cost of living and take online voice teaching, right? Like, I'm not saying that this person should or shouldn't do that, but I am saying that especially in the internet age, these options are very, very real and they very, very much exist. I think that in my cohort, I now realize just what an intense bubble New York City is. And I'm even going to go one step further and just say, like, densely populated urban environments in general, that are populated by industrious people in their 20s and 30s. It can feel like, well, in order to do anything, I have to live in this city. I have to be in the room where you know what? We're just going to keep quoting Hamilton for this entire video. And apparently there's nothing you can do about it, right? It's like, I have to be in the thick of it. Like, I have to be in the greatest city in the world. I have to be in the room where it happens. And like, you don't have to. You just don't have to. That's not the way the world works anymore. This is a true story. I almost moved to Plano, Texas. In October of 2018, I took the greatest vacation of my life. It is still the greatest vacation of my life, and it is not close. And I spent 5 days in Plano, Texas. It was incredible. It was amazing. Because I flew in on a Wednesday morning, and the conceit of it, and like subconsciously I knew that this wasn't really true, but like the conceit of it, and I got time off of work, I was like, look, I told my bosses I got to leave New York. I'm not happy here. I need to get out for my own mental health. Like, I'm really close to a breaking point. It has nothing to do with you, but like, I got to get out of New York. And I was like, I'm looking at Plano, Texas. I don't know what I'm going to do in Plano, Texas, but I feel drawn to there for some reason, some energetic reason. And the goal was to be in the Dallas area because Dallas does have some amount of a TV and film scene. Dallas is itself a really big city. It's got a lot of corporate stuff. Like, I think Dallas is pretty rad, if I'm being honest. I think Dallas is pretty fucking dope. And then, I went there and I traveled there and I was like, man, if I didn't want to be very specifically a Hollywood actor, and if I didn't want to live in Los Angeles, in Hollywood, as much as I want to, because I want to live there, I want to live here real bad, I could do fucking anything except be a Hollywood actor in Plano, Texas. And that was a really sobering realization for me. And I think that if I hadn't gone to Plano, I think it would have been harder for me to fully invest in leaving New York and moving to Hollywood, because I just didn't have that contrast yet. And I went to Plano and I was like, oh my God, 99% of the things that I could want to do in life, I can do in Plano, Texas. I can be a professional video game streamer in Plano, Texas. I could be a voiceover artist in Plano, Texas. I could work my way up the corporate ladder in Plano, Texas. I could be a professional musician in Plano, Texas. I could be a wedding singer in Plano, Texas. There are so many fucking things I could do living in Plano, Texas. Except the one thing I want to do more than anything, which is be a Hollywood actor. And so now I'm like, okay, because I want this thing enough, the barriers presented to me of getting out of New York, they are now irrelevant, right? I'm sure I mentioned this in one of my old Facebook videos, but like, I did not bring that much stuff with me to Los Angeles. I didn't. I brought, I don't know, I think I shipped maybe $500 worth of stuff, $1,000 worth of stuff. Basically a couple of like garment boxes. I don't even know if I shipped garment boxes. I think I just like a couple of big boxes of clothes, a handful of books and DVDs and things, which I could ship via media mail, which is as a side note, if you don't know what media mail is the greatest fucking thing ever. Because what you can do is you can ship books, CDs, and DVDs, and I think pamphlets count. Go on the USPS website if you're in America, and look at that, because it is a vastly cheaper way to ship really, 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 really heavy things. It's great. So if you're shipping a lot of things and you have a lot of books, media mail is for sure your best bet. But anyway, I shipped a couple $100 worth of things home. I packed up a couple of suitcases and my guitars. And like, that's it. Like, I just bounced. Because trying to move all of my shit with a moving truck company, van, whatever, that would have not only been like literally tens of thousands of dollars. The whole move from New York to LA, if I had done it, it would have been like 24,000. Like, it was some astronomical amount of money to do it when I was doing it, how I was doing it. It was just a fucking mess. And I was like, okay, well, that means that I just have to leave all of my shit. All of my plates, all of my furniture, I sold a couple of things on Facebook Marketplace, but like that's about it. Like I was like, all right, I'm just leaving because I don't give a shit. The amount that I want to leave New York and move to Los Angeles trumps the amount that I want all of these things that I have accumulated over the years. I don't fucking want them. I think when I totaled it up, and like right before that, I had done a big, KonMari purge. I ended up actually wanting and keeping, I think it was like a 12th of my worldly possessions. Like I had a really nice TV. The amount that it would have cost to ship it would have been $299. The amount that I could have sold it for was $275. And I'm like, yeah, I'm just going to sell it and buy a new TV for the new space. Oh my God, yes. So like, that's sort of what I'm getting at is like, the more you can be in touch with how much you want a thing, you're going to see systemic barriers really, 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 really differently. I know a lot of people in New York who are not happy in New York, but they are not so unhappy that they're going to get up and leave. Why? Well, they got a job that they like. They have a routine they like. They have a girlfriend. Their family is nearby. Could be worse. You could be doing a lot worse, right? I was not in this position. I couldn't just shrug my shoulders. I was like, I'm so actively unhappy and I want to leave so much that I'm just gonna fucking make it happen. And if that means that my worldly possessions cannot come with me because taking them with me is prohibitively expensive and a logistical fucking nightmare, great, bye. I don't give a fuck. So all of this is to say, when we're talking about the victim mindset, the most important thing to remember is that you have a lot of agency. You may not be perfectly positioned within whatever game you're trying to play. And there absolutely is a lack of parity when it comes to just people trying to exist in this weird capitalist system that's now kind of falling apart, right? Absolutely acknowledge that. If you don't acknowledge that, then you're just being stupid. And like, that's irresponsible. To act like these systemic barriers don't exist. What I believe makes somebody not a victim, right, or get them out of a victim mindset is this idea of these barriers are real and surmountable. And the fact that those two things are not contradictory. Something can be real and also surmountable. It is not just fake things that we can get over. We are capable of getting over very, very, very real hurdles. We just are. The way to do it, however, that requires balancing your functions, at least within the context of OP, right? It requires balancing human needs. It requires balancing all of the different parts of your psyche and your emotions and your physical self and all of these things. So for instance, like I'm in fine shape. I'm a reasonably fit dude, I guess, whatever. I can help you move really, really easily. You want to move a couch? Fuck it. We're going to move a couch. That's great. But my body is not quite where I want it to be to walk into the kind of rooms that I want to walk into with the level of confidence that I want to walk into them with. And so my desire is really, really high. Does that mean that I'm going to throw out everything in my pantry that's even remotely unhealthy and just eat salad for the next 6 months? No. A, I don't want to. B, that actually would not help me towards my goal, right? But what it does mean is that I'm going to look at that bag of Gorp that I've been snacking on and being like, I think I can just throw you out because I put too many M&Ms in it before. I really just need the raisins and the peanuts. Like, that's all. I shouldn't be snacking on raisins and peanuts. That's fine. But there are too many M&Ms. All right, fuck it. Throw it out. I was looking around and I'm like, you know what? I feel there's a lot of chaos in my environment. You know what? I always know that I feel better when I'm in a less cluttered environment. And I just came back from vacation and had to unpack shit and haven't thrown things out yet. So yeah, you know what? I can absolutely take care of some of the clutter in my apartment. I can absolutely do the dishes. I can absolutely do some laundry. I can wash the floors. I can, take 30 minutes to program out my next week's worth of exercise, right? I could absolutely go to bed earlier so that I can wake up earlier because I like to work out in the morning, right? Like, each of these things individually is not going to get me where I want to go, right? Throwing out the numerous cardboard boxes from all of the, my new setup gear that I got, that's not going to fix the problem tomorrow, right? Throwing out the cardboard boxes is not going to turn me into Chris Hemsworth overnight, right? It's not how that works. But what throwing out the cardboard boxes will do is it will make it so that I'm not wasting mental energy on things that aren't my goal, right? And if my goal is at any point unclear, I can actually focus my mental energy towards that goal rather than being distracted by all of the bullshit around me, right? Now, in my case, that happens to be sensory chaos, right? Because INTJ, my masculine SE, it's double activated, and also my last function, which super fun sometimes, but also it means that I can't do the laser focus, blast sleep IJ thing that just ignores reality and focuses in on my one goal, right? So I'm like, all right, I gotta clean my apartment. I've actually started to wear different clothes that fit my body better, because then I'm like, oh yeah, this is how clothes are supposed to fit. Yes. Okay. Now I understand. Like, now there's an ignition underneath this thing that I want, and going to the gym just becomes easier. Right. So all of this is to say, even if you don't have agency over the biggest things in your life, right? Big, massive, systemic sexism, racism, homophobia, transphobia, ableism problems, right? Those are big things. You probably ain't gonna solve the entire system by yourself tomorrow, and nobody's actually asking you to. This is not the expectation. That's literally not how any of this works. But what you can do is you can say, okay, step one, let me just start to get shit in order. Let me start to clean up small messes in my life. Because what that'll do is that'll get you into a mindset where you believe that change is possible. And just to sort of wrap up on this idea of New York, the saddest thing in the world, and why I see so many people who really get stuck in New York when they're so unhappy, is that they're at a point where they're like, change is not they do not believe that changing their circumstance is within the realm of possibility for them. And to that, I would say, okay, look, if you've lived in New York for 40 years and you have a friend group that you've built for your entire adult life, a wife and kids, an apartment that you own, a job at a law firm that you've had for 35 years where you're a partner. Like, yeah, that shit's real hard to extricate from immediately. Like, to flip the switch on something like that, huge. But you know what? There are almost assuredly other things in your life that are making you unhappy. So if you are at the beginning of your journey of like, I think I need to make some changes. I'm tired of feeling like I am a victim of my own life. You really can and should start with small things. You know, clean your apartment. Do the dishes. Go grocery shopping. For me, that was the big thing that actually got me out of New York. Is I started to work out. I started to get more fit and started to be like, yeah, I need to give a shit about what I put in my body. Yo, let's fucking go. And then I was like, oh, hang on a second. Going grocery shopping is hard. Wait, what the fuck? I don't want grocery shopping to be hard. Oh no, absolutely not. Right? And so it's in the process of trying to solve these smaller things that you start to just build a general confidence about things are surmountable, right? The size of them makes them easier to surmount or more difficult to surmount. But the basic premise of things are not inherently insurmountable. They just require varying degrees of effort to overcome them. That's the mindset you want to be in. And now I feel like I'm at a point, now that I've been in Los Angeles for almost a year. I just crossed the 11th month mark a few days ago. And now I'm like, okay, as soon as I want something different, I don't get it immediately. Like I said, I'm not going to turn into Chris Hemsworth overnight. That's not how things work. But as soon as I want something, I can look at, okay, what is it actually going to take to get to where I want to go? Let me break it down into all the sensory steps. Then I can look at those sensory steps and look at my timeline and go, okay, does the timeline need to adjust? Do the steps need to adjust? Do I even want to do it this badly? And then from there, I can decide. And if I say, you know what, I don't need to look like Chris Hemsworth. I'm cool not looking like Chris Hemsworth. Then that's great. That's an active decision that I have made. And now I'm not beating myself up over it because it's like, you know what? I saw what it took. I just don't care enough. There are other things that I want more that are worth my time and energy, and that I'm really willing to put in the work to accomplish. And so that's where I'm going to focus my energy. So I encourage all of you to look at the things in your life. If you're like, everything is fakakta, that may be. Start with the small things that you can fix. Cleaning your room. How about this? Not that I loathe to give parenting advice as somebody who is very, very much not a parent. But like the changes that I have seen in just family dynamic when, if like a kid gets put into a different home, a different environment, a less toxic presence is sort of guiding them, right? Even just shit like, my kids are exhausting me all the time. Guess what? You can institute bedtime. That's a thing you can do. You can be like, okay, at 8:30, I expect you to go to bed, right? And by 9 o'clock, I expect you to have lights out. The lights need to be off at 9 o'clock, right? Those are rules you can implement, right? If your issue is, God, my kids just stay up all night and they never go to bed and they always watch TV, you could do something about that. You really, really can. There is a lot over which we have control. Maybe not the biggest things immediately, But I guarantee you there are things in your life that if you just started to chip away at them, you would be like, you know what? Okay, this actually does make things fractionally easier. Let's reassess. Okay, yeah, this big problem is still big, but now it's less big, and now I can really focus a little more of my attention on it. And then you slowly start taking care of the bullshit, and you can devote more and more of your attention to the real big looming issue. And look, in my case, it was, look, I fixed all the bullshit, and I'm still miserable. All right, I just got to leave New York. But I'm so glad that I took the time to fix all of the bullshit and didn't immediately go to, well, New York is fuck New York, right? Because then all that bullshit would have come with me. So start with the bullshit, start small, start chipping away at small problems to train your psyche into believing that change is possible and that you do have agency over your own existence. And then slowly over time, you will be able to tackle those biggest problems that actually matter to you because your clarity of desire is just going to be so high that nothing can stand in your way. All right, that's all I got for today. Thank you for hanging out with me. Have a happy Saturday, and I will talk to you guys later. Please wear a mask. Oh my fucking God. If you live in America, wear a mask if you are going outside. The coronavirus is so fucking real. Like, I don't know how to say that any more clearly. Please, for the love of God, wear a goddamn mask. Okay, that's all. Bye. Wear a mask.